for the kingdom of heaven, not the kingdom of earth. And Christ has been very explicit about this. This is not a temporary thing. This is an eternal thing. They're expecting Christ to establish his earthly kingdom. In fact, all the Jews were too. And they thought they were going to overthrow Roman rule. And when Christ said, that's not my plan, they rebelled on it. See, they didn't get what they wanted. And folks, sometimes we turn our back on God when we don't get what we want. When it's not in our time. When it's not what we think. And so Christ is going to straighten them out. Verse 4, he makes an impactful statement. And folks, this is something that should be impactful for us. In verse 4 he says this, and Jesus answered. If you ask God, you're always going to get an answer. You may not like what it is, but he will give you an answer that will be based on truth. And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that what? No man deceive you. Don't be fooled. There's a lot of erroneous teachings about this chapter in churches. There's a lot of erroneous beliefs out there that people say that they're Christ. They start their own religion. And Christ is saying to his disciples, don't be fooled. You know, every believer having a relationship with Jesus Christ is supposed to be his disciple. So when Christ talks to his disciples, he's talking to us. Let's not be deceived. Let's look for the truth. So do not be fooled. Now, in order to answer Christ's answer here, you need to know God's word. Matthew over and over and over again has always talked about when he said this happened, that the scripture might be fulfilled. Christ is going to reference some prophecy out of the book of Daniel. And we need to understand this, because chapter 24 is not about the rapture. Chapter 24 has nothing to do with the church. It has everything to do with God's chosen people. In Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 through 27, it says this, 70 weeks are determined upon who? Thy people. Daniel was an Israelite. Daniel was a Jew. So God is talking to Daniel, says, your people. He's talking to Jews. And upon thy holy city. That's what? Jerusalem. And to finish the what? Transgression. To finish sin. Christ did that for us on the cross. Christ is going to do that when he comes back. And to make an end of sin. And to make reconciliation for iniquity. And to bring in what? Everlasting righteousness. When Christ comes back and set up this kingdom, that kingdom will never end. Amen. The kingdom of heaven will never end. And to seal up the vision of prophecy and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem and to Messiah the Prince. So he gives a timeline here. It should have been no surprise when Christ was born in Bethlehem to the Jews. They could have done the math. The wise men did. The ones came from the east. They knew. They knew. They were looking for the star. Are we looking for Jesus? Are we looking for God? He says, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem to Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, 69 weeks of years. So you can do the math. And this is to his crucifixion. The street shall be built again and the wall even in troublous times. We studied the book of Nehemiah and Ezra. After 62 weeks, or the 69th week, Messiah shall be cut off. What is that? The crucifixion. And the people of the prince shall come and shall destroy the city and sanctuary. When shall that happen? Soon after. The Romans come and sack Jerusalem. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and until the end of the war of desolations are determined. Okay? So there's a spiritual warfare going on right now. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against what? Powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. So we're talking about the 70th week, right? I've already done 69 weeks, so we're talking about the 70th week. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, who he called the Antichrist. And in the midst of the week, that's 3.5 years, he shall cause the sacrifice of oblation to cease. If you come to our study on Daniel or Revelation, you found out that the Antichrist comes to power in the 7-year reign, in the 7-year tribulation period. He allows the Jews to rebuild the temple through a peace treaty. They start the sacrifice again. They're waiting for this. They're really waiting for this because they know that Christ is coming back. They just don't know he's already come. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that the determined shall be poured out upon the desolate, those without God. The 70th week is a 7-year tribulation period. You can preach for weeks and months and even possibly years on this chapter. But we've already been there. We already have the tools necessary to understand what Christ is saying here. The tribulation period is not for the church. The church is never mentioned. It's for the testing of Israel. It's the trying of Israel. He will come back. He will establish his earthly kingdom in Jerusalem. And they're going to have a choice to follow him or to take the mark of the beast. We have a choice right now to follow God or not follow God. You have a choice to be faithful or not be faithful. You have a choice to be righteous or not righteous. It's black and white. They get a choice. But this involves Israel. Before the tribulation starts, the rapture comes. We are a pre-tribulational church. We believe that the church will actually physically be raptured out of the earth and we will not be here. Amen. We are also pre-millennial. We believe that Christ will set up a 1,000-year reign on earth and he comes back and sets his foot on the Mount of Olives. Amen. And we'll rule with him. That 1,000-year stuff has not happened yet. Not happened yet. So, what should we do? We need to look through history, and history will always give us a precursor of what's coming. So in verses 5 through 7, he asks this, he says this, he says, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. For the Antichrist to come and do this, the environment of the world needs to be set up for that. There's been a lot of people who said they're Christ. Reverend Sun Yat Moon, he wasn't Christ. David Koresh, he wasn't Christ. There's people over and over and over said, I'm Christ. And they led a lot of people. Bob Jones. And they led them to what? Destruction. Destruction. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. See, the world is being set up for this. We hear this all the time. This country's fighting this country. This is happening, and this is happening. This is happening. It's not the tribulation period. We're still here. But it's coming. Amen. It's coming. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And there's to be what? Famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes, and diverse places. Have you heard about that? Just look at all the major events, catastrophes that's happening in the world. We're not in the tribulation period yet, but it's coming. See, people are going to have to understand this. If you're looking for the signs, you'll be prepared. If you're a Jew going into the tribulation period, you need to realize what's happening. Because you're going to have a hard choice to make. You're going to have a hard choice to make. What should we do? There's some biblical principles that we should look out for. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. Last Sunday night we talked about being foolish. And being foolish is living as if God doesn't exist in our life. Okay? We're supposed to walk around and not be surprised by this. We shouldn't be surprised by this at all. Not as fools, but as what? Wise. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. You know, those guys after Christ ascended thought that Christ could come back. Christ could come back today. Are you living like he's coming back today? Are you waiting for him to come back today? Are you hoping that he comes back today? telling other people it can come back today?
Amen.
We need to change our lives and our attitude because Christ can come back today.
Amen.
Little children, it is the last time. And as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists. Wherefore we know that this is the last time. We are in the last time. And there's a lot of wickedness out there, and we're the only truth around. And we need to be the truth. And we need to live the truth.
Amen.
And we need to speak the truth.
Right.
So understand the signs, and then he gives the answer. And I'm going to quickly go through this. This is for the people that follow Christ's witness in the tribulation period. There will be people that come to God in the tribulation period. People taught for years that wasn't going to happen. But it will. It has to. God says so. So for those undergoing the 70th week, perseverance is required. In verses 8 through 14 it says, all these are beginning of sorrows. For they shall deliver you up to be afflicted. It shall kill you. It shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, shall betray one another, shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But once again, the pieces are getting put in place. And folks, churches are turning into social things instead of teaching the truth.
Amen.
We're supposed to make disciples, not make people fat.
Amen.
Okay? We're supposed to change people's lives spiritually, because that'll change the outside too. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax or get cold. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. Newsflash, there will be people that survive the tribulation period. You know the ones that get through and get into the 1,000-year reign? The ones that don't receive the mark of the beast. And the ones that aren't caught. And the ones that aren't beheaded because of the mark. They don't have the mark of the beast. That's all in Revelation. Go study it. Come talk to me. I'll tell you all about it. But it'll take some hours. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness to all nations, and then to the end shall come, and shall the end come. Even in the tribulation period, there are still witnesses. 144,000 that are sealed. They're all who? They're Israelites. Then there's the two witnesses. I believe they're Enoch and Elijah, because they haven't died yet. But that's up for debate. It doesn't matter. And they're going to be witnesses. They're going to stand up against the Antichrist. And then even before the big stuff happens, at the end of the tribulation, there's an angel that goes all across the earth having the everlasting gospel. God always gives a witness before judgment comes. It is appointed unto man once to die, and after this judgment. Your judgment's coming. We will all die one day. But God gives us mercy. He gives us the ability to be ready for that. So our judgment is put on Christ on the cross, and we don't have to undergo it ourselves.
Amen.
So perseverance is required for those going through. We won't go through. No one in here is going through the tribulation period. Okay? If you're saved. If all of a sudden you find out a whole bunch of people going, you're still here, you're in trouble. I won't be here. And because perseverance is needed, you need to have a perception. In verses 15 through 29, there's a perception that's demanded here. It says, when ye therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. You know what? It's not going to be hearing. People going, when all this stuff starts happening, there's going to be a lot of Bibles opened up. See, and also, there's already been a desolation of the temple. In 168 BC, a guy by the name of Antichus Epiphanes got into the temple and sacrificed pigs and set up his own idols and then killed thousands of Jews and basically corrupted the temple. He said, when you see something like that, in the middle of the 7-year tribulation period, the Antichrist is going to go into the temple and he says, you worship me, I am God. There are going to be people say, okay, yeah, no, that's cool. But there's going to be people who understand the truth, that see the signs and say, no, he's the wrong dude. And they're going to run. And that happened 3.5 years of tribulation period. Go read Daniel. It talks all about it. When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet, stand and hold it. Whoso readeth, let him understand that now the bad stuff's going to happen. Up to this time, there's been things called seal judgments. And then over here, we have trumpet judgments and vial judgments. And they get worse and worse and worse. All sorts of stuff happens. And 1/3 of the rivers get killed. And 1/3 of the fish die. And half of that die. And all of it. It gets worse. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. That's what Christ is talking about here. When this happens, you better run for your lives. Now, they got a little taste of it in 70 AD when the city was sacked, but it has no comparison to this. When the Antichrist comes up in the temple, you better run. And maybe this message will be left over on the internet during the tribulation period, and people will understand that. It says, let them that be in Judea. Hey, if you're in Judea, you must be an Israelite, because this is the testing of Israel. Flee! Get out of there! Into the mountains. Let him that is on the housetop do not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him get into the field return back to take his clothes. And woe to unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But play at your flight not be in winter, or on the Sabbath day, because you have that Sabbath day journey thing to do. You got to get far, far away, and you better do it quickly. For then shall be what? Great. Do you think it was bad now? Just wait. Such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. That's pretty extreme. Except those days be shortened, these should be no flesh sake, except for the elect's sake, those days should be shortened. Okay, let's talk about the elect. God knows who's going to be saved. But God told Israel that you're my chosen people. There's their election right there. God made all the promises to Israel. He's going to fulfill his promises to his chosen people in the land. He's going to give them a chance to serve the Antichrist or to serve the real Christ. To take the mark of the beast or not take the mark of the beast. You're going to get a chance. But when this dude gets up in the temple and says, I'm God, he's not, you better run. Because he's going to hunt you down. Those days should be shorter. And if God's judgment, Jeremiah writes, he said, if it wasn't for the mercy of God, we'd all be what? Consumed. God in his judgment always has mercy. He always gives the truth before the judgment comes. Your judgment's coming. I'm giving you the truth. You need a relationship with Jesus Christ this morning if you do not know. You need to be saved. There's the Antichrist, the false prophet, and beast. They do all these things. There's other people that follow them. There's a whole bunch of demons that go out there. They do the devil's bidding. It says, then if any man shall say to you, lo, he is Christ, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, and so much of it is possible, they shall deceive the very elect. They won't deceive the ones who know the truth. They're running. Behold, I've told you before. There's a whole Old Testament written about this. Wherefore they say to you, behold, is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, is in a secret place, believe it not. They want to flush you out. I'm so glad we don't go through this. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Who's the Son of Man? Jesus Christ. The Son of God. God in the flesh. God incarnate. God who is now glorified. He has ascended to heaven. He's coming back. He promised his disciples he's coming back. I go and prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there ye may be what? Also. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. You won't know. You can't cram for this. It's going to happen, and it's not on your thinking, it's God's way. So wherever the carcass is, what's a carcass? A dead thing. There will the eagles be get, not eagles, vultures. You see a bunch of dead roadkill out there? What do you get? A bunch of buzzards. There's going to be so much roadkill out there that the birds will have a feast. But you're not going through it if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ today. You'll be the feast if you don't know Him today. And you die. For wherever the carcass is, there will be the eagle stack immediately after the tribulation of those days. If you thought that was bad, look at this! Shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Boy, we better be getting right for this day, so we don't have to go through this. Are you ready? Do you know Christ is your Savior? Over and over, He just pleads with us. And Christ does all this, and He's talking to His disciples. 2,000 years ago, He's talking to His disciples and saying, all these things are going to be left for a legacy so people can know the truth. So the destruction is not blamed on God, but blamed on the Antichrist. And people will follow the choice. Folks, it's a choice. Verses 30 through 31. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and shall all the tribes of earth mourn. If you read Revelation, when these things start happening, they hide themselves in rocks and caves and everything else, saying for the mountains to fall on top of them because they don't want to see the face of God. And then they shall see the Son of Man come in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Hallelujah! And we're coming back with Him. Amen. I know the end of the book. Amen. You should know the end of the book. It should encourage you. And He shall send His angels with a great sound of the trumpet, and He shall gather together His elect. Who are the elect? The Jews. The ones who have not received the mark of the beast. From the four winds, the four corners of the earth. From one end of heaven to the other. So, you need perseverance. You need perception of what's coming. And understand that God's promise is true. So now, in the rest part of this chapter, really quick, he gives 3 illustrations. 3 illustrations to drive home the point. You know, when you read a textbook, you know, oh, I don't understand this. And the teacher goes, and you sit there and go, I don't understand this. And then all of a sudden, the teacher gives an object lesson. And the light bulb goes off. Ah, I understood. When I was in graduate school, a light bulb went off. And I realized all the things I should have learned back in undergraduate school. Better late than never, absolutely. And folks, it's never too late to start looking for God. And it's never too late to start following Him. Never too late. So, he gives 3 illustrations. The first one's a parable. Now, this is interesting. The parables were given to the crowd before. Now they're given to the what? The disciples. Folks, we need to dig the truth of God out. We need to take time to study God's Word and understand what's going on here. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. Oh, fig tree, fig tree. We've heard about fig trees, haven't we? The cursed one. There's another thing about the householder and the vineyard and all this other. Fig tree stands for Israel. Okay? When his branches yet tender and put forth their leaves, you know the summer is nigh. So likewise, when you see all these things, know that it's what? Near, even at the doors. Verily I say that this generation shall not pass till all things be fulfilled. And so the certainty of these things happening is made with this promise. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not what? Pass away. You can bank on it. So Christ is telling His disciples overlooking Jerusalem before He gets crucified, these things are going to happen at the end of time. And it's going to happen for sure. And there's not going to be any change in it at all. Everything else that I've ever created can pass away, but these words won't. The next one, the example of the day of Noah. Verses 36 to 34. But that day, an hour knoweth no man, knoweth not the angel of heaven, but my Father only. When Christ was in his fleshly body, he limited himself. He knew the time, but he chose not to know it and tell people. You know why? Because you know what's happening. You'll wait for the last moment. We need to make a decision for Christ today. Today's the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Okay, Noah built a what? Ark. Because there was coming a what? Because of the what? What was the flood for? Worldwide judgment. What's the 70th week of Daniel? Worldwide judgment. But God always gives deliverance. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days of... Now, just look at this and just think about today's society. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. Ha! Look at that! He's building a ship. There's never been rain. What's a flood? What's a flood? Huh? You're out of your mind, Noah! We're just going living our lives just as if nothing's going. Today will be just like yesterday, and tomorrow will be just like today. That's what Peter writes. Folks, it's coming. And all of a sudden, drip. Drip. Thing called rain happens. The earth opens up, flood waters come. All of a sudden, all those unbelievers are running to the ark. Beating us. Let us in! Let us in! Let us in! Too late. Judgment is here. Right. God shut the door on the ark. Go read the story. And you not until the flood came and took them what? All away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. This is not talking about the rapture. This is talking about the magnitude of the judgment and the choice that you have to make. Christ was hung between two what? These. One chose him, one did not choose him. In the tribulation period, you have a choice. Mark of the beast, no mark of the beast. For us, we have a choice to follow God or reject God. That's what this is. Then shall two be in the field, one shall be taken, and the other left. One chose wisely, one chose unwisely. Two women shall be grinding at the same mill, but one shall be taken, and the other left. Folks, it's a choice. You don't know when it's coming, but you better be ready for it. Amen. Judgment's coming. I don't know I can speak it any clearer. Judgment's coming. This is coming. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Amen. This is coming. You've got to be ready for it. If you go into the tribulation period rejecting the gospel, you'll never have a chance. You'll never have a chance. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that the good men of the house, I'm going to get burglarized at 8 o'clock. So I know I'm going to get burglarized at 8 o'clock. I've gone to Ricky's class. Come on in. Come on in. That's what he's talking about here. If you knew when it was going to happen, you'd be ready for it, right? But know this, that if the government of the house had known what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would have not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready. It could happen today. In such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Not on your timetable, but on his. And we're not God, and we don't know. Are you ready? We sing the song, are you ready? Are you ready for the what? Judgment. Folks, we need to be ready. We need to be ready. The examples of the day of Noah. And look at all the stuff that goes on in the world today. Just like that. Go read Genesis 6. Folks, the world's sick and gone by its antics. And I hope that the world's antics not going on in the church. The world's antics should not go on in your life. We need to live as if we're ready for the judgment. And then lastly, okay, so it talks about the suddenness of coming to Christ, second coming to Christ, or all the precursors for it. The tribulation period. Now, closing this chapter out, we got through it. Verses 45 to 51, there's two servants. There's a faithful one and an unfaithful one. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say to you that he will make him ruler over all his good. Okay, Christian, here's the secret. Listening. We need to be living as if this is the last day on earth. We need to be living as if Christ could come back today. We need to be living and studying so we pass the test. So God, we will not be embarrassed when Christ comes back. We need to be faithful today. Not just on Sunday morning, but faithful on Monday, and Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday, all the way through the week, for the rest of our lives. Because this could be the last day on earth for us. Are you faithful? Is there something in your life that you know God's not pleased with? Get it fixed today. And we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from what? All unrighteousness. Don't leave here today without being saved. Don't leave here today without being right with God. Because you have a choice. If you choose wisely, you get this. If you choose unwisely, then. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayed his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. To live as God's not coming back. To live as the truth doesn't exist. The Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder. And now look at this in the context. And appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. The last chapter, Christ 8 times said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees. And 7 times he said, hypocrites. Folks, you're either right with God or you're being a hypocrite today. You're either living for him or you're not. It's time to live for him.
Amen.
You sound pretty all fired up about this. I am. We need to be.
Amen.
That's what God's word says. And there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which means you weren't a follower in the first place, and your eternal destination is hell. Because weeping and gnashing of teeth is always patterned with hell, the discussion of hell. So this morning, the question is this. The necessity of faithfulness is now. Have you accepted Christ's offer of salvation? Do you know him as your Savior? If not, I have great news. Jesus Christ, God loved us so much that he gave us his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not what? Perish but have everlasting life. Amen. He took your sin on the cross and paid the penalty for sin, which is death. And rose again to show that he has power over sin and over death. And he sits in heaven. He offers salvation to anyone who wants to take it. And it doesn't matter if you've been in church for 40 years, 20 years, or 40 minutes. If you don't have a relationship with Christ, get one today. Ask him to forgive you of your sins and save you and give you a home in heaven today. And Christian, are you living as if this is your last day? If Christ came up on you, would you be shocked or would you be pleased? Would you be scared or would you be happy? We need to be living as if Christ is coming back today. If not, the problem's not God, it's ours. And we need to fix it. We need to fix it. Let's stand. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day. Lord, I ask you to do a sign of invitation. Father, help us, Lord, to be ready. Well, right now we're in the church age. And Lord, we're not going through this. But Lord, you also say if you go into the tribulation period, you've heard the gospel, they'll believe you are. They'll be eternally lost. Lord, I just ask, help us, Lord, today. If there's someone who does not know you, today, when this music starts, that come forward, we show them from your word, your promise, to save and forgive. Father, for us, help us be more faithful. Help us, Lord, to follow you with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, to love you, and to be like you. Father, cleanse us. Make us worthy servants. We ask these things in your Son's name. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portals, he's waiting. Don't wait. Watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. Ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling no sinner, come home. Let's live and that Christ can come back.
Amen.
Amen. Are you ready?
Amen.
Are you ready? Let's tell somebody. Let's let him lead the waters. Amen. God bless you.
Have a good evening.
How do you do my heart today?
All right, sir.
I know where you live. Like,
You too.
So glad you came back. Amen.
She was
Take care.
that was the test.